Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of TNCBA's Tips, Tricks, and How-Tos. And as we enter the month of May, we're going to kind of start to shift our gears into that post-spawn. You know, we've talked about some pre-spawn techniques. We've moved through the spawn here in April. Now, that does not mean that the spawn is over, guys. That spawn will linger and continue on through the month of May. You may even find some bass on the beds in June. And our lakes are unique in the fact of Douglas and Cherokee can sometimes be way ahead of places like Watauga and Holston because they warm up a little bit slower. We have a lake like Patrick Henry. I know that that lake,
telling what they'll be doing that on the June, July.
Yeah, so I mean, the way these lakes work and the way they fluctuate and stuff, so that can linger on. But we're going to kind of turn our attention towards the post spawn and start to talk about some techniques here going through May and some scenarios that you might find during the month of May that will help you catch these fish that are coming off the beds. They're going to be a little bit more weary and stuff from that spawn, but they're looking to feed up because they've used up a lot of that energy. So Kelsey, today you're going to start off with a little topwater action for us.
One of the most exciting ways to catch fish is throwing your topwater baits. I mean, one of my favorite go-tos is the pop R. I grew up throwing a pop R. I mean, a little bit different than that one. I used to throw the smaller ones that used to be a very good fish catcher, but now I've moved on to the bigger pop Rs. That's actually a P71 pop R. That's their newer model that they came out with.
But it was meant to imitate the original
the original P70.
P70, yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, that is a awesome pop R that they've come up with. I feel like that one's been one of the best ones because they did try to recreate the P70.
That's the best. Yep.
But going back into it, I like to throw the pop R around this time of year. It's got a good displacement of water. You're wanting to target those fish that are post spawn, garden fry, things like that. Getting close to those used up beds, you know, where they're keeping their babies. So,
and the thing is, like when it comes to top waters, we got a few different classifications. You know, a buzz bait's something that you're gonna cast and wind. You've got your walking style top water baits. This is one of your chugging style. Again, that mouth on it is made to cup so that when you pop it, it's going to spit that water, Kelsey, and it's going to make some noise out there.
And one thing about the profile of this actual pop R right here, the P71, it is a bigger profile, so it does have a little bit of a walkability.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. It's more of a pop and walk type deal. So that's the way I'm going to work mine.
Now, do you find it better walking if you add like a clip or do the loop knot? Is that key to it, or does it walk pretty well for you?
It walks pretty well as it is for me. Now, for some people, I mean, a loop knot will help you walk that bait a lot better. Yeah. And it's gonna. One thing I always try to do that I've learned over the years is when I tie my knot, I always push it down to the bottom of that hook, so it's kind of pulling up. Okay. More or less, so it's making that spitting action. It's making that more of that chug. Okay. And it's going to splash that water up ahead of that bait, so it's making more of a commotion. Okay. But I do like to walk that bait a lot too. All right.
So let's now get into. With that, to get it to walk and stuff, your line, your rod, all that has to be important.
Yes.
And then we can talk about maybe the scenarios that you're going to target with it. So what about your rod, your line, and your reel setup?
With this particular style of fishing, I like to be very precise with my cast. Okay. So I'm going to go with a shorter rod. I'm going to go with a 6.6. Okay. That's what I prefer. Yeah. I throw all my top waters on the same rod. It's a 6.6 medium action rod. Okay. I'm throwing it on braid floats. Yeah. A lot of people like to throw mono, which mono's another great top water line, but I like to go braid just for that durability.
And a lot of times you're around either brush or you're around boat docks. I know that we've had some experiences even down like on Cherokee and stuff. Some of those floating docks that you have. You're around cables and stuff and a lot of things. So that braid is nice to have on there versus that mono.
The braid just gives me a better peace of mind, more or less. And then, like I said, it's mono and braid, they both float. Yeah. Fluorocarbon's a no-go. It's going to sink. It's going to make your technique a lot harder. Yeah. So definitely,
so I like the 6.6 deal because, like you said, it's easier to target those casts.
A lot of times I'm close to cover, and working those boat docks and things like that, it gives me more maneuverability. Yeah. And I mean, when you have somebody else fishing with you up on the boat or whatever, it makes for good tight spaces and tight cast. Yeah. So that's why I like the 6.6. Okay. As far as reel, I throw all my top water on a spinning reel. That's just my preference. I work it better. I know a lot of people, I can't I can't do anything with my left hand. So like I said, I go with what works best for me.
Well, and sometimes, like you were talking about the smaller pop-bars, and they were really light. And those were really hard to flip unless you have a high-speed reel, say like the MGX. I like to throw mine on the Boo Garcia Revo MGX, but it's really good for light baits. But that's one thing I'll say about this P71 is it's got some weight to it. You could pitch it around and stuff a little bit easier on a bait caster, but again, having that comfort with the spinning rod, you really like what you can do and where you can place it with that.
I feel like I said I have more control.
Yeah.
So that's key when you're fishing topwater. I mean, some days you can just cast it out in the middle of a pocket, and they'll come up and they're just going crazy. And I mean, you may run into that coming into the post spawn. You got your shad spawns coming up and things like that. But more or less, I'm targeting structure right now.
Right.
So that's why I like that 6.6. And still, you can cast it a good ways. Throwing it on braid, throwing it on a spinning reel, of course. So you got the capability of making that long cast.
And the thing about this bait, guys, is that this popper kit, you can really let it sit in their face for a long time, and there's small twitches and stuff.
And they'll kind of sink down, and that's, if you look, it's got that feather on the back. So it kind of looks like it's more than just one fish.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, it looks like there's another follower or whatever to the
smaller
fish.
With it.
So, like I said, when you're working that, it just depends on what the fish want. I let the fish tell me what they want. So I try different cadences. I'll go 1-2 twitch, or I'll just walk it all the way back to the boat. And just kind of let it do its thing. And
now the other thing that I have found with chugging style baits is also figuring out how harsh to pop it. Sometimes they want a light spitting action and stuff, and it really depends. And if you have a little bit more chop on the water, a little bit of wind and stuff, a little bit of wave action, that little bit harder chug and that little bit harder pop, spitting some more water will get their attention. So we're talking about braid or mono, something that's going to float, because that's what you want this topwater to be able to sit there for a while and not have that line sinking down and getting a bow in your line. And then 2, we talked about a shorter rod, because you're going to be looking at cover, whether it's around laydowns or around docks, or you're wanting to put it into a precise point. And then really the choice comes up to you on spinning rod versus bait casting stuff, what you feel most comfortable with making those casts or flipping, and not having something that's going to backlash easy on you. That's one of the nice things about the spinning tackle. But now let's dive into the situations we're looking at. So we're coming off the spawn. And again, God has it set up perfectly to take care of these creatures that they've used up tons of energy. They've been up here on the beds. And now there's going to be a shad spawn coming around. But you also found last year when we fished Watauga, which that's coming up here later in May for us, fry garters. So you're going to have those males hang around, those buck bass. And tell me what you're looking for. How do we know that there's fry around there? What are you seeing? And then
I mean, most of that's being visual. I mean, just being able to see them, and that's where your eyewear comes in. And you have good polarized sunglasses, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have been able to see, 1, the fry up on the bank, and then 2, the fish.
And the fryer, we're talking tiny. And you're in these spawning areas, again, either around a laydown or a dock or something, because the fry is going to want to hold tight to cover. So you're looking for them. And the one thing I will say, Kelsey, is you're not always going to see the bass that's guarding them. If you see the fry, they're somewhere close by. Yeah, you may not see the bass, but that's what's so good about this technique. You can flip this in there around the fry, flip it right in on top of the bait ball, or not the bait ball, but the fry ball, or flip it just past them and work it up to where you see them sitting. And she'll ease in there, or he'll ease in there to check it out. And sometimes it's a ferocious bite, but a lot of times they're just kind of coming up there and looking at it.
They're coming up there getting it out of the way.
Yeah.
A lot of
so
times.
They'll come up there and just mouth at it and just kind of take it down. But I think that those fry garters, this is an awesome way to catch those fish that are sitting there. We talked about the wacky rig in just our previous video, and that you've caught some on that Watauga. Go back and check out the Watauga video from last year, guys, and you'll see him flipping over there with that wacky rig. But this popper will do the exact same thing. So with the popper, we went through that structure of mono, braid, shorter rods, casting around target, looking for fry. Anything else, Kelsey, that you can think of that you want to add?
No, not really. I think that covers it up pretty well. I mean, we'll probably cover some more things going into that season later on in another couple videos.
But again, it's a great way to get some blow-ups. It's a fun way to fish, guys. It's definitely going to get your heart pumping when those fish come up. Topwater is always a great time. But again, this is a good bait that allows you to keep it in their face for a long time. Keep it around that target or keep it around that fry. So go out, put you a popper on as we get into May and we get into this post-spawn time frame and catch you some bass that are guarding those beds and even some that have pulled out under those docks to heal up, guys. We'll check you out on the next one.